The first knowledge area we're going to discuss is project integration management. I want you to think about what the word integration means. This will help you better understand this knowledge area. The word integration means to bring together, to form, to coordinate, to combine, or to blend. So this knowledge area is really the hub of the wheel that brings all of the project management process groups and knowledge areas together to accomplish the project's objectives. So this leads us to the official definition from the PMBOK perspective. Integration includes the processes and activities needed to identify, define, combine, unify, and coordinate the various processes and project management activities within the project management process groups. In other words, this knowledge area really encompasses many of the other processes in the other knowledge areas because this knowledge area is where all of those other processes get integrated. To illustrate this further, let's have a look at this chart. As you can see here, the integration knowledge area involves all of the process groups. It's the only knowledge area that does, which is important to note, and I'll explain why in a second. But first, look at these integration processes. Under the initiating group, the process is develop project charter. Under the planning group, the integration process is develop project management plan. Now, the integration knowledge area is unique to the other knowledge areas in that it kind of houses all of these other processes as they go on in the other knowledge areas. So as you look down this column, you'll see, for instance, that all of these other knowledge areas contain processes that have to do with planning. These planning processes, as they are handled through the various knowledge areas, scope, time, cost, and so on, all really contribute to and become part of the overall project management plan. So the develop project management plan process in the integration knowledge area actually includes all of these other processes. This will become clearer as we go through all of the other processes. So moving on through this integration knowledge area, the executing process group is direct and manage project execution. The monitoring and controlling process group contains two processes: monitor and control project work and perform integrated change control. And in the closing process group, we have close project or phase. Each of the knowledge areas will have similar rows, and they will have processes in varying combinations of these groups. And for the next 10 modules, I'm going to walk you through each knowledge area and its corresponding processes. Develop Project Charter is the process of developing a document that formally authorizes a project or a phase and then documenting the initial requirements that satisfy the stakeholders' needs and expectations. This is an important document because it outlines the purpose for the project, summary budget, milestones, high-level requirements, and a high-level project description. You can imagine that without this document, it would be difficult to successfully manage a project and understand what's involved. Generally, this document is issued by the project initiator or sponsor. Remember that for each process, we'll mention the inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs, and we'll call those ITTOs for short. So the ITTOs of this process are as follows. Here's the inputs. Let's talk about enterprise environmental factors, also referred to as EEFs, which include the environment of the project. For example, the organizational culture and systems, government regulations, or project management information systems. Another input is organizational process assets, or OPAs, which are all the lessons learned documents, methodologies, templates, procedures, and so on. Both of these are needed and can drive the development of the project charter. Another key input to the project charter is the project statement of work, which is a narrative description of products or services that the project will deliver. This statement includes 1. The business need. In other words, why is the project needed? 2. The product scope description. In other words, what should the project do? And 3. The strategic plan. In other words, how does the project support the long-term goals of the organization? Another key input is the business case, and this includes the cost-benefit analysis and any other information that's needed from a business standpoint to select the project. This information can include one or more of the following: market demand, organizational need, customer request, technological advance, legal requirement, ecological impact, and social need. In other words, the business case is a required input because it comes about as a result of one of these needs or potential benefits. Now, what do we mean by expert judgment as a tool or technique? This is expertise that any group or individual with specialized knowledge or training that will bring and benefit the project. This could come from a consultant, professional associations, subject matter experts, or stakeholders, or from any number of other sources. This is a common tool and technique that you will see used in many other processes in project management. The actual project charter is our desired output here, and this is the document that's put together by the initiator or sponsor. The project charter is extremely important. It is the very first document that we produce in the project. As a result, let's look at a project charter for the following project. I want you to consider an example where you are the project manager and have been asked to build a new school building for primary education in Los Angeles. The school will be designed to have a maximum capacity of 500 students. A purpose or justification of the project would be a place for children to study. The project description is a summary of the business case. A high-level project description should state why your organization is taking on the project, the purpose behind the project, and the main benefit, and who the customer is. Here's an example. The school is being developed to provide a place for economically disadvantaged children to learn and study in a positive environment in the Los Angeles area, and it will be beneficial because it will help advance the knowledge base of the community and provide a means of giving back to the community. Let's take a look at this example. High-level project and product requirements. Do we need a school? School for 500 students. A summary budget, for instance, $10 million. A summary milestone schedule, 2 years. Project objectives and success criteria. How will we know what we have achieved or what we have set out to achieve? An increase in the number of students that become educated and graduate from school, greater levels of partnership with community organizations. Develop project management plan is the process of defining, preparing, and coordinating all subsidiary plans. The project management plan defines how the project is executed, monitored, and controlled and closed. The project management plan is our single desired output for this process. So what should the project management plan include? All the project subsidiary plans. That means every planning document that has been referred to as a plan. You'll notice that we have initial plans created for scope, time, and cost. Every single knowledge area begins with planning, and all of those documents go into this plan. So the inputs for this process are actually the outputs from other planning processes. For instance, we create a schedule management plan that becomes part of the larger project management plan. And it's the same with the risk management plan, the cost management plan, and all other plans, including the project charter, which you'll remember as our output from the preceding process, so that all of those plans are integrated as a result of this process. The project management plan also includes the 3 baselines. In other words, cost performance baseline, schedule baseline, and scope baseline. Think about those baselines. Can you tell me which knowledge areas they come from? Cost for cost performance baseline, time for schedule baseline, and scope for scope baseline. It's pretty simple. You just have to remember that these 3 knowledge areas line up to what we call the triple constraints in project management, meaning that these are the 3 key issues which you, the project manager, must manage simultaneously in any project: scope, time, and cost. A couple of other things to remember are that the project management plan is a living document that will be updated throughout the life of the project. But once this plan is baselined, it may only be changed through the Perform Integrated Change Control process, but we'll discuss that in another video soon. The project management plan needs to be prepared by the project team and approved by all relevant stakeholders. Direct and manage project execution is the process of performing the work defined in the project management plan to achieve the project's objectives. This is where the majority of the project team's time is spent in doing the work. The real focus is on producing deliverables. A deliverable is a unique and verifiable product, result, or capability. If you are in the construction field and you build hotels, then your deliverables could include building the foundation, walls, ceilings, etc. Hopefully, after all of your efforts in this process, we have something to show for it: deliverables. This process also includes implementation of approved changes. The key inputs are, of course, the project management plan, approved change requests, which includes the requests that have been reviewed and approved for implementation by the Change Control Board. These approved change requests could impact any part of the project or the project management plan. They can be virtually any change to any aspect of the project. The tools and techniques for the direct and manage project work process include expert judgment and the Project Management Information System, which provides access to tools such as a scheduling tool, a work authorization system, a configuration management system, an information collection and distribution system, or even a project management software, which could be useful to manage a project such as Microsoft Project or even Excel. The outputs of the direct and manage project work process include the following. Deliverables. Remember that a deliverable is any unique and verifiable product, result, or capability to perform a service that is required to be produced to complete a process, phase, or project. Deliverables are usually tangible components that are completed to meet project objectives. Whether you are producing products for your customers or reports for your employees, your projects must have deliverables. Project deliverables are the tangible products generated from a project. Without deliverables, projects would be pointless. Deliverables are why projects are created. However, there are many kinds of project deliverables that are intended for both internal and external stakeholders. Some projects have many deliverables, others just have one. For example, let's suppose you own an ad agency and a customer has asked you to develop a marketing plan for their business. Before the marketing team can begin work on the plan, they need one of the marketing analysts to produce a business profile. In this scenario, the business profile is a project deliverable for an internal stakeholder, the marketing team. The finished marketing plan that will be delivered to your customer is a project deliverable for an external stakeholder. Work performance information, meaning that as a result of executing the project, the team is in a position to provide information about the project work being performed on the project, such as what's been completed, what's to be completed, etc. Change requests for needed changes that come up during the process are also included here. Well, that wraps up the direct and manage project execution process. Not too bad. I'll see you in the next video to go over the processes in the monitoring and controlling group. Hang in there and perhaps take a few moments to think about what we just talked about. In the monitoring and controlling process group of the Project Integration Management Knowledge Area, there are two processes. The first is monitor and control project work, which is the process of tracking, reviewing, and regulating the progress to meet the performance objectives defined in the project management plan. The key benefit of this project is that it allows stakeholders to understand the current state of the project, the steps taken, and the budget, schedule, and scope forecasts. It's really about checking on performance and acting on information provided by the project team. The key inputs in this process are performance reports. The project team will be providing the project manager with project performance reports that then can be reviewed by the project manager to determine the status of the project, as well as determine if any changes are needed. A key tool and technique is expert judgment, because the project manager will rely on subject matter experts in various areas to gauge project progress and obtain input on any areas of concern. Finally, one key output is change requests, because as the project manager gauges project status and progress, sometimes changes are needed and would be submitted via a change request. Lots of great information here, and it makes sense. The second process in the monitoring and controlling process group in the integration knowledge area is perform integrated change control. This is the process of reviewing all change requests, approving changes, and managing changes to the deliverables, organizational process assets, project documents, and the project management plan. The best way to look at this process is to realize that any suggested changes, whether they appear big or small, may have far-reaching impacts on a project. So it's important to evaluate and consider change from a holistic perspective. In other words, change needs to be integrated and evaluated across all the process groups and knowledge areas. So the most important thing this process does is to allow for changes within the project to be considered in an integrated manner that actually reduces project risk. The Perform Integrated Change Control process is conducted from project inception through project completion. There are a few things to remember here about how change should be handled. If it is a small change, the project manager will need to document it, get a sign-off from the customer, and then approve the change. If there is a major change that could significantly impact the project manager should go through the entire Perform Integrated Change Control process. Whether a small or large change control is never an informal, but always a formal process with proper documentation required for approving changes. So, we cannot consider a hallway conversation an appropriate way to communicate the need for change. Whether big or small, at minimum, we need to take the time to document the requested change. If it's a significant change, we then need to go through the Perform Integrated Change Control process. The ITTOs, as you can see here, are much the same as the preceding process, except that our key inputs are change requests for those changes that are considered significant or major, which might include corrective action, preventive action, and defect repairs. A key tool and technique is change control meetings, whereby clear procedures and guidelines are established, and the board will review all submitted change requests and determine which ones are approved or rejected. The key output of this process is change request status updates, whereby the team can take action on the approved change requests. Close project or phase is the process of finalizing activities across all of the project management process groups to formally complete the project or phase. This process is really about the project team delivering the final product, service, or result expected from the project. This includes all the deliverables which are produced during the executing process group. In close project or phase, the project manager reviews all prior information from previous phase closures to ensure that all the project work is completed and the project objective is met. Also, if a project is terminated, this process establishes procedures to investigate and document the reasons why the project was terminated. Here are some important points to remember about this process. The close project or phase process includes finalizing all activities completed across all project management process groups, formally closing the project or project phase, transferring the completed or canceled project as appropriate. The close process is done A, at the end of each project phase, B, at the end of the project, or C, if the project is terminated, in which case the process is to document the reason that the project is being terminated before completion. Please note that an important input in this process is accepted deliverables, which is an output from the Verify Scope process. This means that the deliverables have been reviewed to ensure that all were completed correctly and satisfactorily, and we have obtained sign-off from the customer. That's great news. The organizational process assets that are updated as a result of the close process include project files, which are the documents resulting from the project's activities, such as the project management plan, scope management plan, and cost management plan. Remember all of those plans that we talked about in the planning process earlier? Well, in the closing process, all of those have to get updated. And project or phase closure documents have to be created. These are documents resulting from the activities of the actual close project or phase process. This will include things like a review of prior phase documentation, customer acceptance documentation from scope verification, and the contract, if that applies, to ensure that all project requirements are complete prior to finalizing the close of the project. Finally, lessons learned. Let's figure out what worked and what could be improved for any similar type projects in the future. What lessons did we learn? Think about it, get with the project team, and document it. And that concludes this module on project integration management and the 6 processes involved in that knowledge area. I hope you've enjoyed these lessons and will remember that integration is really the hub of the wheel that brings all of the process groups and knowledge areas together to accomplish project objectives. I hope you will join me in the next module of videos as we go over the scope management knowledge area.